When I started my consultancy, I was under the impression that because I have 40,000 followers and because I've been putting out content on LinkedIn for a really long time, that meant that I would be booked for months on end and would be just drowning in inbounds. I certainly got some business just through the reputation that I had built out. What I quickly learned was marketing and self promotion is essential, and changing people's perspective on why you're showing up is not all that easy to do.
Welcome to Overwhelmed and Over It, the podcast where founders come to drop the hustle culture BS and learn how to actually enjoy building their business. I'm your host, Gabs, and I believe your success as a founder shouldn't come at the cost of your sanity. Each week, we bring you real, unfiltered conversation with founders who are figuring it out just like you are. No sugarcoating, no highlight reels, just honest stories and actionable lessons that help you navigate your founder journey with more clarity and confidence. Whether you're building your first company or scaling your fifth, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Our founder today is Liam. I have to admit, I'm having a little bit of a fangirl moment. I was super excited because since I've been focusing on LinkedIn for the last year, you've been a huge source of inspiration. I feel honored to have you on the podcast today. Liam, I'd love for you to introduce yourself to the audience of Overwhelmed and Over It and tell us a little bit about your founder journey.
Thank you so much. And no need to worry that I wouldn't come onto the podcast. I love meeting people. I love having conversation. It's really why I do what I do. First and foremost, like get that out of the way. And nobody's too big to have a conversation with somebody. I'm Liam Darmody. I'm the founder of Liam's Brandstand, which is a personal brand strategy firm. We help entrepreneurs and executives build personal brands that attract talent, clients, and opportunity. And I've been doing this for about a year now. My background prior to this, I was in sales operations and revenue operations for about 18 years until I pivoted my career to move into brand marketing, which is something I can talk about in a little bit, and then decided to start my own thing in August of 23. And the rest is history.
Oh, and it's been so fun watching you start your journey. I remember like those first walks you were taking where
Yep.
you're like, I'm just out. If anyone wants to chat, I got my phone with me while I'm walking.
Yep.
And so it's been really incredible watching the brand that you yourself have built over the last year as a really powerful testament to the work that you're doing. So I'm super excited to learn more about it today.
Thank you so much. That means a lot, and I appreciate it. Hopefully, I live up to your expectations.
All right. So, one of my favorite parts of interviewing founders on this podcast is that we all have messed up. We have all had massive light bulb moments or lessons along the way. So, I would love for you to share with us in that last year, what's been some of those big light bulb moments that come to mind for you?
When I started my consultancy, I was under the impression that because I have 40,000 followers and because I've been putting out content on LinkedIn for a really long time, that meant that I would be booked for months on end and would be just drowning in inbounds. I certainly got some business just through the reputation that I had built out. What I quickly learned was marketing and self promotion is essential, and changing people's perspective on why you're showing up is not all that easy to do, right? I started my journey on LinkedIn largely for the community component of it. I love learning about business and talking about business with other people. And that was why I showed up every day, not to do business. I had to shift the perspective of a lot of people in my network that I'm here for business now and you can work with me. And be comfortable asking for money for the advice I used to give out for free. That was a very big difference for me and a big transition. Also, I spent the majority of my career at the bottom of the funnel analyzing performance metrics from a sales strategy standpoint. And then I would just tell the sales team what my insights were and they would adjust their strategy accordingly. Being a founder of your own company means you're at the very top of the funnel and the bottom of the funnel. So the first 3 months, it was definitely terrifying and exciting at the same time. And it took me a while to wrap my head around the fact that I was now in the business development world and trying to sign new clients and doing sales and marketing and all that good stuff. That was the biggest adjustment for me.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much because many of us who are solopreneurs or individual entrepreneurs, we hear you have to have a personal brand, right? That's just the name of the game now, building a business. And so you go on LinkedIn or Instagram or wherever you think your audience is, and you start building thought leadership. And then there's this missing component of business development and sales. I actually saw a post on LinkedIn this morning that was like,
No one's whipping out their credit card because you gave them 5 steps to do blah, blah. There's so much more that happens between just throwing your, thought leadership out there. Even for you, this is what you do for a living. There still was that time to learn the gap between education and community versus this is a business I'm running and I need to actually be comfortable doing that.
100%. Still not comfortable, by the way. Still figuring it out, but getting better every month. And that's all you can ask for.
Everything we're doing every day as founders is strictly just an experiment. So it's like, just freaking do the thing, because everything you do is an experiment, and you're either going to fall flat on your face, but you're going to learn something, or it's going to actually work. And you're like, great, I'm going to double down and do more of that.
Yep. 100%.
What is that thing right now that's overwhelming you or keeping you up at night in the business?
What's keeping me up at night? There's a couple things that are interesting to this space specifically. And that is, when you start creating content on LinkedIn, you start finding other people who are creating content as well. And you start seeing all these other coaches that are out there doing the same thing as you. And it's very easy to compare yourself to other people. It's very easy to think, oh, well, they're doing this really well. Maybe I shouldn't do it if they're doing it. You start to kind of second guess things. You get into a bit of an echo chamber, and that can be challenging. The other thing is taking action, having a bias for action. Part of my challenge is somebody that was in operations for as long as I was, is that you can measure twice, cut once in an operational role, right? You have the potential to make some pretty big mess ups if you don't do it that way. And so being comfortable with just ripping the Band-Aid and just trying something new and just taking action for the sake of taking action, it was new for me. I was always very effective at doing that in a company environment, but doing it for myself where you could fall flat on your face, the only person you can point to is you, right? So it's a little different than being like, what's the post-mortem? What did we do wrong here? It's really just you, and you have to face the music. And that's not comfortable. And then I think the other thing is just not having that quote unquote stability, right? Being accustomed to getting a paycheck every 2 weeks provides you with a level of security that you don't have as an entrepreneur. Some months you have incredible months, and some months a little lighter. For me, I've developed this weird habit of, I didn't make any money today, so today must have been a fail. There's so much more that you can work on in your business that isn't just dollars and cents related. And so you have to shift your perspective and start thinking about things more holistically and from kind of 50,000 feet above, but you're also in the nitty gritty doing everything. So it's a very interesting and different approach for somebody who spent the majority of my career leading teams and leading leaders of teams. It was a very different adjustment for me, but getting there, and haven't had a month where I haven't made money yet. So, hey, that's got to be doing something right.
Hey, that's a good perspective. I like it. And I sympathize with you a lot around this kind of bias on action. And I'm looking at your hat, and I really love this, courageous over fearless. Because I would say, even when I came back from my sabbatical over the summer, I was afraid, because I think I was the opposite. I was ready to just move so fast, coming from product development, where it was like, you always have competitors on your heels, and we're always, soaking up so much information. We have to react to it right away. That I did that in my business. And then I found myself in all these different directions and was going nowhere. And so when I came back, I was really cautious to not do that. And so I found myself moving really slowly. And then it was like one whole week where, I swear to you, every time I opened LinkedIn, there was some sort of post that was like, money likes action. Money likes speed. Money likes just do the damn thing. Okay, fine. I will just do it. Okay. Like, I got it. And then I also think, like, to your point, right? If there is no postmortem anymore, other than sitting with yourself in that room, maybe your own multiple personalities, or maybe the different roles and hats that you're wearing, but you sit down and you have to look at the business as a whole, because you are the business for so many of us. But I also think that speaks a lot to the power of LinkedIn and why the community that we build on these platforms is so important. Is because, yes, there's plenty of paid coaching opportunities and masterminds, but there is also such a place for shooting someone a DM and being like, hey, I know this is your strong suit, and I just have a really quick question, or I saw you post on this thing and I think differently about it. Can you walk me through it? Realizing we don't have to be on this journey alone, even if we are technically on it alone.
Yeah, I think that's actually the biggest value proposition of LinkedIn in my experience. I mean, it is the most supportive community online. People don't want to put people down on the platform, they want to lift people up. And that's why, I've made it my online platform of choice for 5 years now. I think we're still in the very early stages of seeing what LinkedIn will become as a user generated content platform. There's still so much opportunity there. And I think it's also becoming a place where people can go to be their authentic selves and be comfortable in that space. Think about other social channels. There's a lot of negativity, there's a lot of anonymity, there's a lot of just hiding behind the keyboard, and you're not really contributing a whole lot of positivity to the ecosystem. Whereas LinkedIn is a lot more like a place where people are passing word of mouth, they're supporting each other, they're lifting each other up. And that aligns with my philosophy on life. So it's a great place for me to spend time.
Yeah. Not really such a thing as faceless content on LinkedIn, right?
Exactly. Yeah, totally. You are who you are. If anything, you should be overly focused on making sure that the message you're conveying through the platform aligns with how you want people to see you.
And I just want to recognize and really respect that you shared you've been at this for 5 years, even though your specific entrepreneur journey has been a year. Because I think for any of us starting out, it can feel very overwhelming. You see, even people like you, like I said, I had this kind of fangirl moment at having you on the podcast with me because I've been focusing on LinkedIn for a year and I'm only at almost 3,000 followers. And then I have to take a step back and think you've been building your network and your ecosystem on LinkedIn for 5 years
Hmm.
and also only 3,000. Like that's 3,000 people who, if just a portion of them hear the messages I'm sharing, I'm making a difference.
Hmm.
And it's really hard to not beat ourselves up when we're in that day to day. And that, 50,000 foot view, like you were talking about, is so important to remind ourselves that while there are a handful that probably did have this kind of quote unquote overnight success, most of us don't. And you don't always see all those kind of hidden layers and the years that we built up before you start to recognize all the success that's coming on the other side of it.
Yeah, totally. There are things that you can do to accelerate the follower growth and the connection growth. My number one piece of advice to anybody on LinkedIn looking to build a network, whether it's for job hunting purposes or for entrepreneurial endeavors, is make sure that you are sending connection requests to 100 people a week. You can do that. LinkedIn lets you do that. You always want to be refilling the top of your funnel and building new connections with people. I think a lot of people make the mistake of just showing up and posting, or they'll show up and post and they'll drop a few comments. So your activity and your engagement with other people in conversation, whether it's DMs, whether it's inviting them to connect with you or on the comments of their posts, that is the most control that you can have on LinkedIn. You can't control how well your post performs. You can't control the algorithm. You can't control the variables that go into making a post successful. You can control how much time and how deliberate you are in the time that you spend here, and that is, in my opinion, the most important thing you can do. Yeah, there are people that I'm connected with who have 3 times the size of my following and they started doing it around the same time I did. You just go with the flow, right? You can't control it. So control the things you can control and don't worry about the rest.
Yeah, I love that. All right, Liam, this is so wonderful. I'm really grateful that we got to do this after kind of being connected for the last year. I'm grateful to get to really have a one-on-one chat with you. So one question I always leave all of my guests with so we can make sure we're doing our good due diligence as founders is sharing with our audience what's the number one piece of support you need right now and maybe we can help fill it.
I would say that the number one piece of support that I need is, I mean, referrals, I think, are the biggest when you're starting out a new business. If you're talking to somebody who's like, I want to build a personal brand or I want to start to figure out how to use LinkedIn and show up there more intentionally, word of mouth is the most powerful way to get new business. So that's really helpful. And my plan is to launch a cohort based course in the new year. It's a plan that I've been kicking down the road for 4 years. So hopefully I do it, but that is my plan. And I think I'm more ready now than I ever have been. If anyone listening is interested in cohort based learning, please feel free to reach out to me and let me know and we can talk about it.
All right, overwhelmed and overt community, you heard it here first. Let's pre-sell it out so we can force Liam over the edge here and make sure he gets it done. We're going to help support that goal.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of the Overwhelmed and Over It podcast. This is the place where we have real life conversations around being a founder so that way we can talk about our failures and our lessons and we can all learn from each other. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Overwhelmed and Over It. You know that feeling when your to-do list is spiraling out of control and you can't seem to find space to breathe, let alone think strategically about your business? That's exactly why I created the Productivity Quickie, the founder's 15-minute sacred appointment with yourself. Here's the hard truth. The number one thing that keeps brilliant founders stuck isn't lack of ideas or capability. It's feeling buried under an endless to-do list. And this is exactly what the Productivity Quickie is all about. It's your time, 15 minutes a week, to get honest about your priorities, manage your to-do list, and create space to actually enjoy the business that you're building. So right now, I want you to pause, schedule your Productivity Quickie for this week. I do mine on Monday mornings, just 15 minutes. Block it off, protect it, show up for it, and go to gabshayes.com/theproductivityquickie or check the show notes, because when you give yourself this gift of intentional time, everything else falls into place. Until next time, remember, you're not behind, you're not failing, and you've freaking got this. I'm your host, Gabs, and thank you for listening to Overwhelmed and Over It.